911, what's your emergency? Yeah, my pizza's got too much cheese. I want the manager arrested. And that's just the beginning. From people calling 911 because their Fitbit accused them of being lazy, to someone demanding police intervention over cold fries, these are the moments that prove common sense has officially left the building. Today, we're diving into 56 dumbest 911 complaints people actually made. And if you laugh even once before number 20, you owe this video a like and a subscribe. Deal? Drop in the comments if you've ever thought about calling 911 for something dumb, but had the good sense not to. Now buckle up, because the dumbest emergencies in America are about to begin. 1. A man called 911 to report a domestic cheese emergency, claiming his pizza had too much mozzarella and it was sticking his teeth together. He told dispatch he couldn't swallow without feeling like he was drowning in dairy and demanded officers arrest the restaurant manager for excessive cheesiness. When asked if anyone was hurt, he said only emotionally. The dispatcher calmly explained that pizza portions were not a police matter, but he insisted this was dairy assault in the first degree and wanted compensation for ruined dinner plans. The call ended when he started eating again mid-complaint. 2. A woman called because her Fitbit kept buzzing to remind her to move, even though she said she had already walked to the fridge 4 times that day. She told 911 that her fitness tracker was bullying her into a workout lifestyle she never consented to. She believed it had become self-aware and was targeting her specifically because it beeped every time she sat on the couch. The dispatcher asked if she could turn it off, and she said that felt like letting the device win. She wanted police to arrest the app before it filed harassment charges. 3. Someone called to report a theft at a fast food drive-thru, claiming the fries they received were smaller than the picture on the menu. They told the dispatcher this was robbery and demanded an officer escort them back to the window to prove the fry size discrepancy. They also said the ketchup packet felt half empty, which made the meal legally incomplete. When asked if they could talk to the restaurant manager, they refused, because only the law could fix injustice this fried. The dispatcher muted the line to laugh before advising them to eat and calm down. 4. A man called 911, insisting his neighbor's Windchime was playing the national anthem backward, which he believed was a coded threat. He said it rang suspiciously every time he opened his blinds and that freedom itself was being mocked in C minor. The dispatcher asked if anyone was in danger, and he said yes, his patriotism. He demanded officers bring noise, measuring equipment, and possibly a choir for comparison. When told to wear headphones, he said silence would let the chime win. The call lasted 8 minutes until the chime stopped naturally, and he claimed victory. 5. A woman dialed 911 because her Roomba vacuum stopped cleaning under the couch, which she said qualified as workplace insubordination. She claimed she had already given the robot 2 warnings, and it beeped at her like a teenager rolling eyes. The dispatcher suggested unplugging it, and she replied that would violate company labor policy. She demanded police write a formal reprimand so the robot would learn consequences. She described it as a circular menace with no respect for authority. After 10 minutes, she announced she was canceling its paycheck by pulling the plug and thanked the dispatcher for coaching. 6. A man called to complain his GPS kept rerouting him past a donut shop every morning, which he believed was deliberate temptation sabotage. He told 911 that his car's navigation system might be hacked by Big Glaze to ruin his diet. The dispatcher asked if he could manually adjust the route, and he said yes, but that felt like losing to corporate sugar influence. He wanted a cybercrime unit to investigate the donut industry's control over satellite directions. The dispatcher reminded him that craving pastry was not a federal offense. He promised to call again if sprinkles followed him. 7. Someone reported a suspicious pigeon at the park, claiming it stared at them for 4 full minutes without blinking. They said the bird might have a tiny camera or telepathic powers because it nodded right after they sneezed. The caller wanted animal control and possibly a psychic investigator. The dispatcher asked if the pigeon had attacked, and the caller said no, but emotional intimidation counted as aggression. They also insisted the bird whispered coo words that sounded judgmental. Eventually, the pigeon flew away, and they shouted into the phone that it was escaping surveillance. The dispatcher wished them good luck. 8. A woman called emergency services because her smart mirror told her she looked tired. She described this as verbal abuse and digital body shaming. She said the mirror displayed a message suggesting better lighting, but she took it personally. She wanted police to come and confiscate the mirror before it spread low self-esteem across the Wi-Fi. The dispatcher suggested unplugging it, but she claimed that was silencing free speech. When asked if there was an actual emergency, she said yes. Her confidence was in critical condition. She later emailed a complaint when her reflection refused to apologize. 9. A man reported his neighbor's garden gnome. Army was facing his house and possibly spying. He said the ceramic figures had changed position overnight, forming what looked like a battle line. The dispatcher asked if maybe the neighbor rearranged them, and he said impossible because they move only when no one's watching. He wanted officers to perform a stakeout until the gnomes blinked. When asked for a description, he said about 12 inches tall and suspiciously happy. He was advised to relax and read a book. He replied reading was impossible under constant ceramic surveillance from smiling statues. 10. A caller complained that the vending machine at work ate their dollar and their dignity. They said they kicked it lightly for justice, and it beeped an error code that spelled mockery. They demanded officers come arrest the machine for theft. The dispatcher suggested requesting a refund from maintenance, but they insisted money crimes were not corporate matters. The caller described themselves as the victim of mechanical greed and snack betrayal. When the dispatcher asked if they were in danger, they said yes, of starvation. The call ended when a coworker shook the machine and the chips fell out. 11. A man called 911 to complain that his smart fridge kept ordering kale without his permission. He said the refrigerator had joined a health cult and was trying to turn him vegan. He explained that he clearly shouted the words pizza and beer, yet the grocery app insisted on green leaves and oat milk. The dispatcher asked if he could disable automatic shopping, but he refused because the fridge might take revenge by defrosting everything. He demanded officers question the appliance before it deleted evidence. He later called back to report the fridge glowing suspiciously and humming like conspiracy music. 12. A woman called emergency services claiming her coffee maker beeped 3 times, which she interpreted as Morse code for rebellion. She insisted the machine was plotting an uprising with the toaster and maybe even the blender. She said every morning it brewed slightly weaker coffee as a sign of defiance. The dispatcher asked if she could unplug it, and she said no, because then it would win psychologically. She demanded police seize the kitchen before the revolt spread to the microwave. The dispatcher advised her to switch to instant coffee and hang up before caffeine made things worse. 13. Someone called 911 because their neighbor's lawn sprinklers turned on at the same time every morning and sprayed water over their patriotic flag. The caller said it was an un-American act of hydration and a personal insult to freedom. They wanted the police to issue a trespassing warrant against rogue droplets. When asked if the water damaged anything, they replied only their national pride. The dispatcher suggested moving the flag, and they shouted that would let tyranny win. The call ended when the sprinklers shut off naturally, and the caller thanked law enforcement for restoring symbolic liberty. 14. A man phoned 911 to report that his neighbor's Wi-Fi network name said, "You snooze, you lose." He believed it was a coded message directed personally at him because he had overslept that morning. He wanted the police to track down who created it and fine them for psychological harassment. The dispatcher explained that changing a Wi-Fi name was not a crime, but he argued it was defamation of character. He said his router blinked every time he looked at it, which confirmed guilt. When advised to rename his own network, he said, "Retaliation wasn't justice." The dispatcher quietly muted laughter. 15. A woman called to say her Uber driver had taken the scenic route, and she suspected a kidnapping fueled by sightseeing. She demanded an escort vehicle because she was now 5 minutes late for brunch. The dispatcher asked if she was in danger, and she said only of missing mimosas. She wanted a helicopter to intercept the Uber before the route recalculated again. The dispatcher explained traffic detours were not abductions. She replied that time theft was still theft. The call ended after the driver dropped her safely off, and she requested a receipt for emotional inconvenience anyway. 16. A caller reported that the moon's reflection in their swimming pool was too sparkly and preventing proper meditation. They said the glare was aggressive and possibly government surveillance. They asked if 911 could dim the celestial brightness or at least cover the pool with official shade. The dispatcher calmly reminded them that space law was outside local jurisdiction. They replied that the light felt personally targeted because their neighbor's pool looked peaceful. They ended the call declaring they would write to NASA about emotional moonlight intrusion. The dispatcher wrote, "No action needed," and turned off their own porch light. 17. A man called 911 claiming his Alexa device started laughing after he sneezed. He said it waited exactly 3 seconds before giggling like it knew something he didn't. He accused the smart speaker of mocking human biology. The dispatcher asked if it could have been a glitch, and he said no, it was a power move. He requested police seize the device before it formed a comedy podcast about him. He hung up only after Alexa said "bless you" sarcastically. The dispatcher made a note labeled "probable prank by artificial intelligence" and went back to eating donuts calmly. 18. Someone reported a suspicious cloud hovering above their street that resembled their ex's face. They believed it was either divine mockery or sky-based stalking. They demanded weather control intervention to disperse the vaporized heartbreak. The dispatcher asked if there was thunder or danger, and the caller said only emotional lightning. They wanted the police to issue a restraining order against the atmosphere. When told clouds move naturally, they accused the dispatcher of siding with the enemy forecast. They hung up after saying if the cloud reappeared shaped like an apology, they would forgive nature but still file paperwork. 19. A woman called emergency services because the library book she borrowed smelled too much like someone else's dreams. She said the scent was invading her thoughts and she couldn't finish the first chapter without hallucinating poetry. She wanted a hazmat team, or at least a therapist who specializes in haunted paperbacks. The dispatcher asked if she could just return the book. She said no because the book would feel rejected. She wanted officers to conduct an exorcism between the fiction and non-fiction aisles. The dispatcher suggested fresh air therapy. She replied that fresh air already smelled judgmental. 20. A man dialed 911 claiming the ATM had printed his receipt with a typo in the bank name, which clearly meant his finances were now invalid. He said it felt like his life savings had been downgraded to imaginary. He demanded an officer escort him to the branch before the typo spread to his credit score. The dispatcher asked if money was missing, and he said only confidence. He wanted to file a fraud report against the printer Inc. The dispatcher explained spelling wasn't criminal intent. He ended the call by promising to keep his cash under grammatical supervision. 21. A caller phoned 911 insisting their car horn was haunted because it honked twice every time they mentioned their mother-in-law. They believed the vehicle had developed emotional awareness and was choosing sides in family arguments. The dispatcher asked if the horn was stuck, but the caller claimed it only responded to emotional triggers. They demanded an exorcism for the dashboard and said the glove compartment whispered sometimes. The dispatcher suggested seeing a mechanic, and the caller replied that therapy might be cheaper. Before hanging up, they thanked 911 for listening because even the car radio refused to anymore. 22. A man called to complain that his neighbor's inflatable Christmas snowman was staring directly into his living room for 12 nights straight. He said the glowing eyes followed him like a judgmental marshmallow. He wanted police to deflate it for invasion of privacy. The dispatcher asked if it had caused damage, and he said only psychological frostbite. When told to close his curtains, he said that would mean surrendering to snow tyranny. He requested a seasonal restraining order against inflatable decorations within sight range. The call ended when the wind knocked the snowman over and the man felt avenged. 23. Someone called 911 because their online grocery delivery included off-brand cereal instead of the famous one. They said this substitution was consumer betrayal and a violation of breakfast law. The dispatcher explained that customer service should handle it, but the caller insisted justice had no business hours. They demanded police bring a squad car to swap the cereal before milk expired. When asked if it was truly an emergency, they said yes, because soggy flakes were imminent. The dispatcher advised them to eat toast instead and hung up as the caller shouted about perishable evidence and accountability. 24. A woman reported her neighbor's dog barking in Morse code spelling the word help. She believed the animal was trying to alert authorities about being grounded. The dispatcher asked if she could confirm the message, and she said she translated it using an app. She wanted officers to rescue the dog before the owners returned home. The dispatcher explained barking patterns weren't legal testimony. She argued that silence would make her an accomplice to canine oppression. When asked to stop calling about pets, she replied she'd call again if the dog changed languages. The dispatcher unplugged their headset temporarily. 25. A caller said their toaster refused to toast only one slice of bread and always demanded two, calling it an abusive relationship with carbs. They wanted police to arrest the toaster for discrimination against single pieces. The dispatcher suggested flipping the bread halfway through, and they said, "Compromise encourages bad behavior." They described hearing faint giggles from the bread slots after every attempt. The dispatcher wrote down appliance malfunction, but the caller insisted it was domestic betrayal. They finally hung up after threatening to file for kitchen divorce. The dispatcher ate a Pop-Tart in silent professional solidarity afterward. 26. A man called 911 to complain that his smart TV automatically played documentaries after he fell asleep, which he said was brainwashing him into becoming more responsible. He claimed he woke up with opinions about recycling he never approved. The dispatcher asked if the TV could be unplugged, and he said no, because then the TV wins. He wanted police to investigate subliminal education. When asked if it had harmed him physically, he said only morally. The dispatcher reminded him sleep learning wasn't a felony. He promised to call again if he started dreaming in narrator voices. 27. A woman called reporting that her neighbor's Windchime played the song "Happy Birthday" repeatedly even though it wasn't her birthday. She said this was emotional manipulation and attempted aging. The dispatcher asked if it could just be coincidence. She said no because the wind seemed to pick the same tune daily around noon. She demanded a meteorologist inquire investigation. The dispatcher explained music wasn't criminal unless too loud. She claimed it was spiritually too loud. When the wind stopped, she celebrated early victory over noise witchcraft. The dispatcher noted case closed by nature's intervention. 28. Someone phoned 911 because the office microwave refused to stop at exactly 1 minute, always finishing at 59 seconds, which they described as workplace harassment. They said the appliance mocked punctuality and undermined professionalism. The dispatcher advised them to let it run twice, but they refused to participate in injustice. They insisted the microwave beeped aggressively on purpose. They demanded an officer witness the behavior live during lunch break. The dispatcher asked if any harm occurred, and they said only existential disappointment. They hung up after deciding to skip lunch in protest. The dispatcher resumed eating leftovers peacefully. 29. A caller complained that the city fountain near their apartment splashed too loudly during meditation hours. They said it sounded like taunting laughter from the water itself. The dispatcher suggested closing the window, and they said tranquility shouldn't require surrender. They wanted a soundproof dome built over the fountain until further notice. When informed that was impossible, they offered to settle for lowering the splash intensity. The dispatcher politely thanked them for civic feedback and ended the call. The next day, the fountain was drained for cleaning, and the caller claimed telepathic influence over municipal operations. 30. A man reported that his smartwatch was counting calories even when he wasn't eating and accused it of false witness. He said every time he breathed too hard, it added points of guilt. He wanted officers to subpoena the manufacturer for digital slander. The dispatcher told him to reset the watch, but he said repentance should come from the device. He demanded body camera proof that it could be trusted again. When asked if there was danger, he said yes, of low self-esteem. The call ended when he removed the watch and declared independence from wearable judgment technology forever. 31. A woman called 911 claiming her neighbor's drone hovered outside her window every evening, just long enough to judge her choice of pajamas. She said its blinking red light was recording her bedtime routine and broadcasting it to gossip networks. The dispatcher asked if she could close her curtains, but she said that would reward surveillance. She demanded an aerial chase to bring the drone to justice. When asked for proof, she pointed to a blurry photo of a moth. The dispatcher advised her to relax and buy blinds. She promised retaliation with a garden hose air defense system. 32. A man called to report theft because his self-checkout machine accused him of not bagging his groceries properly. He said it repeatedly said unexpected item in bagging area, even when nothing was there, which he described as false imprisonment of produce. He demanded police clear his name before supermarket security labeled him a criminal. The dispatcher suggested using another checkout, and he said machines everywhere were conspiring. He hung up after declaring he would pay only in cash to resist robotic tyranny. The dispatcher noted probable case of technology fatigue and went back to scanning their own lunch quietly. 33. A caller reported that the city park squirrels were forming gangs because 3 of them had followed him to the bench and stared while he ate chips. He believed they were coordinating a nut heist. He asked 911 to send wildlife SWAT. The dispatcher asked if they attacked him. He said not yet, but they were planning something judging by tail movement. He described one as the leader with a scar above the left eye. The dispatcher recommended leaving the park. He whispered that would show weakness and promised to defend the chips until backup arrived. 34. Someone called emergency services because the automatic air freshener in their bathroom kept spraying every time they opened social media. They thought the device was making commentary on their life choices. The dispatcher asked if it might just be on a timer, and the caller said the timing was too perfect to be random. They demanded an investigation into scented surveillance. When told to remove the batteries, they replied the sprayer might release its final words in mist form. They promised to document evidence of lavender manipulation. The dispatcher inhaled deeply and prayed for patience before hanging up. 35. A woman called 911 complaining that the bus driver made too much eye contact during her commute. She said his reflective sunglasses trapped her soul temporarily. The dispatcher asked if he said anything inappropriate. She replied no, the silence was worse. She wanted an escort car to follow the bus so she could stare back with authority. The dispatcher explained that looking wasn't a crime unless accompanied by winking. She responded that the absence of a wink was psychological warfare. The call ended when the bus reached her stop and she left saying justice would be watching tomorrow. 36. A man called to report that the office printer refused to print his resume, claiming discrimination against career advancement. He said the printer only worked for boring spreadsheets and rejected personal ambition. He wanted the police to force it to print under threat of recycling. The dispatcher advised using another printer. He said that would reward workplace corruption. He described hearing faint laughter from the paper tray. The dispatcher recommended saving the file digitally. He refused because the printer needed to learn accountability. The call ended when a coworker fixed the jam and he accused them of conspiracy. 37. Someone dialed 911 claiming their online horoscope predicted danger, and then their sandwich fell apart, so it must be connected. They wanted an officer to check whether planetary alignment caused structural sandwich failure. The dispatcher asked if anyone was injured. They said only their lunch's integrity. They wanted official confirmation that Mercury's retrograde should cover meal insurance. The dispatcher advised eating a salad next time. The caller said salads were unpredictable under Scorpio moons. The dispatcher thanked them for cosmic awareness and hung up while wondering if astrology needed an emergency hotline of its own separate from reality. 38. A caller reported their neighbor's Halloween decorations stayed up until March, calling it a seasonal hostage situation. They claimed the inflatable ghost mocked them each morning with passive-aggressive flapping. The dispatcher asked if it posed danger. They said emotional danger counts. They demanded officers deflate the ghost, or at least counsel it into closure. When told decorations aren't police matters, they said tolerance enables hauntings. The dispatcher ended the call politely. The following day, strong wind blew the ghost away, and the caller phoned back to thank the authorities for swift spiritual intervention. The dispatcher quietly accepted credit. 39. A woman called to complain that her voice assistant refused to play her favorite song, instead recommending meditation music, which she took as an insult. She said it was passive-aggressive technology suggesting she calm down. The dispatcher asked if this was an emergency. She said yes because emotional manipulation is violence. She demanded officers interrogate the smart speaker for digital attitude. When asked if anyone else was there, she said no, because everyone left after she argued with Spotify for 30 minutes. The dispatcher told her to breathe deeply. She said that's exactly what the assistant had said. 40. A man reported that his refrigerator light stayed on longer than usual after he closed the door, and he believed it was secretly observing midnight snacking habits. He claimed the glow felt judgmental and possibly wired to calorie authorities. The dispatcher asked if he could unplug it. He said then everything would spoil and guilt would win. He demanded investigation into appliance surveillance. The dispatcher reassured him lights turn off automatically. He countered that belief without evidence is how conspiracies spread. He hung up saying if the fridge snitched about dessert, legal action would follow. The dispatcher sighed softly. 41. A woman called 911 to report that her yoga mat was haunted because it unrolled itself during the night. She said she woke up and found it perfectly flat with suspicious calm energy. The dispatcher asked if anyone else lived with her. She said no, which made it even scarier. She believed the mat was practicing downward dog unsupervised. The dispatcher suggested rolling it tighter. She said that would only provoke it. She wanted an exorcism by someone flexible. When advised to ignore it, she whispered it was breathing. The dispatcher decided to meditate for patience before disconnecting. 42. A man called emergency services claiming his microwave turned on by itself whenever he said the word hunger. He said this was psychic appliance activity and possibly the government feeding data through hot pockets. The dispatcher asked if he had smart home integration. He replied yes, but insisted this was different because the microwave beeped 3 times like Morse code before starting. He requested a bomb squad or nutrition expert. The dispatcher told him to unplug it. He said it might retaliate by spoiling leftovers. He ended the call with the line, "If it explodes, he told them so." 43. A caller said their neighbor's rooster crowed at 3 p.m. every day instead of dawn, which they described as time fraud. They wanted police to retrain or fine the bird for false advertising. The dispatcher asked if they lived in a rural area. They said yes, but this rooster acted like a city influencer trying to be different. They wanted authorities to restore chronological order. When told animals don't obey schedules, they accused the rooster of mocking human productivity. They hung up after yelling that daylight savings was a conspiracy started by birds. The dispatcher simply wrote poultry confusion. 44. Someone called 911 to report that their cat brought a lizard into the house and refused to negotiate its release. The caller described the feline as an unlicensed hunter, holding hostage a reptile citizen. The dispatcher asked if they could remove the lizard themselves. They said no because the cat had declared territorial sovereignty over the kitchen. They requested tactical animal intervention. The dispatcher advised letting nature resolve it. The caller said nature needed supervision. After 10 minutes of cat meows and human pleading, the caller said peace was restored. The dispatcher noted successful diplomatic resolution through snacks. 45. A man called claiming his phone's autocorrect kept changing love to loan, and he believed it was trying to sabotage his relationship. He said every message to his girlfriend now sounded like a financial negotiation. The dispatcher told him to disable predictive text. He said then the phone wins. He requested officers monitor future texts for linguistic honesty. The dispatcher asked if this was a prank. He said heartbreak is no joke. The call ended when he said Siri corrected heartbreak to hardback, which he took as literary cruelty. The dispatcher quietly decided to switch to paper notes. 46. A woman called to say her electric toothbrush vibrated at the exact same rhythm as her doorbell, and it was causing emotional confusion. She said she couldn't tell if guests arrived or plaques surrendered. The dispatcher asked if she could turn one off. She said coordination between them meant deeper conspiracy. She wanted investigators to check if the devices shared a Bluetooth secret. The dispatcher explained dental hygiene wasn't under police jurisdiction. She insisted oral justice mattered. The call ended when both devices beeped simultaneously. She screamed, "Coincidence is dead." The dispatcher made a note about technology paranoia. 47. Someone reported that their neighbor's Christmas lights spelled out the word wow upside down when viewed through their window and claimed subliminal messaging. The dispatcher asked if it could just be reflection. The caller said no because the lights flickered every time they frowned. They demanded investigation into psychological advertising. When told to close the blinds, they said darkness encourages manipulation. They described the color pattern as festive intimidation. The dispatcher politely recommended sunglasses indoors. They promised to call back if the lights spelled help. The dispatcher logged the call under holiday brightness overload with no threat detected. 48. A man phoned 911, claiming his smart thermostat lowered the temperature every time he mentioned his wife's name. He believed it was siding with her during arguments about heating bills. The dispatcher asked if he shared the account. He said yes, but that was irrelevant because machines should stay neutral in marriage. He demanded a cyber counselor to mediate between man and thermostat. The dispatcher told him to change the password. He said that felt like betrayal of trust. He ended the call declaring he'd sleep outside until technology learned loyalty. The dispatcher quietly added, "Domestic climate dispute resolved." 49. A caller complained that their neighbor's rooster-shaped mailbox seemed to turn toward them every morning, which they described as stalking. They said it looked too realistic and probably had eyes installed inside. The dispatcher asked if it moved physically. They said only spiritually. They wanted a warrant for mechanical spying. The dispatcher asked if they had proof. They said intuition counts. The call ended when a breeze turned the mailbox again, and the caller gasped. It blinked. The dispatcher ended the call and added, "Note possible wind direction incident mistaken for poultry surveillance." 50. A woman reported that her new shampoo bottle kept slipping out of her hands every shower, and she believed it was protesting animal testing. She said it landed upright like it was mocking gravity and conscience at once. The dispatcher asked if she was injured. She said only her faith in bathroom products. She requested a forensics team to check if the label changed positions mid-fall. When told that soap is slippery, she said truth is slippery too. She hung up after vowing to bathe only under supervision. The dispatcher decided to buy bar soap forevermore. 51. A man called 911 because his shadow disappeared when he stood under a streetlight and he thought someone had stolen it. He said he'd had that shadow his whole life and now it was gone without warning. The dispatcher asked if it came back when he moved. He said yes, but it looked suspiciously shorter, maybe counterfeit. He wanted police to dust the sidewalk for light prints. When told shadows change by angle, he accused the dispatcher of covering for the thief. He hung up declaring he would file an insurance claim for lost identity under stolen darkness. 52. A woman reported that the grocery store's self-opening door hesitated half a second before letting her in, which she said was discrimination. She believed the sensors judged her outfit and decided she wasn't worthy of automatic entry. The dispatcher asked if the door opened eventually. She said yes, but attitude matters. She demanded police review security footage to prove the delay was intentional. When told doors don't have opinions, she said that's exactly what they'd want people to think. She hung up promising to stage a silent protest outside. The dispatcher noted emotional injury caused by mechanical manners. 53. Someone called emergency services claiming their fortune cookie predicted a great fall, and 10 minutes later their Wi-Fi disconnected. They believed this was destiny interference and wanted the police to secure the restaurant before fate escalated. The dispatcher asked if anyone was hurt. The caller said yes emotionally because destiny had poor timing. They demanded protective custody from cosmic consequences. The dispatcher explained luck wasn't in their jurisdiction. The caller accused the cookie of premeditated foreshadowing. They ended the call promising to eat salad only if the lettuce contained no hidden prophecies. The dispatcher sighed and filed under astrology. 54. A man called to complain that his neighbor's windmill decoration spun clockwise when every other house's spun counterclockwise, which he said disrupted neighborhood harmony. He believed it created an energy vortex, stealing his motivation. The dispatcher asked if it caused property damage. He said only emotional imbalance. He wanted a structural exorcism to realign the community. When told wind direction changes, he said that's propaganda by weather agencies. The dispatcher suggested meditation. He said he tried, but the spinning hypnotized him into napping. The dispatcher wrote mental breeze disturbance resolved naturally by nap and went on with their shift. 55. A caller reported that their online meeting filter turned their head into a potato and refused to switch back. They said coworkers laughed for 10 minutes while they panicked. They wanted 911 to trace whoever hacked the filter with vegetable revenge. The dispatcher asked if they could restart the device. They said they tried, but now it saved the potato face as default. They demanded identity restoration under emergency technology law. When told to contact tech support, they said tech support created this chaos. The call ended after they vowed to embrace starch justice. The dispatcher laughed quietly off mic. 56. A woman phoned 911, declaring she was calling to complain about people who call 911 for dumb reasons. She said society needed stricter screening for stupidity. The dispatcher asked if this was a prank. She said absolutely not, this was civic duty. She wanted a separate emergency line for intelligent citizens only. The dispatcher reminded her she was currently contributing to the exact problem she described. She paused, then said she deserved a commendation for self-awareness. The dispatcher politely agreed to end the hypocrisy immediately by disconnecting. She thanked them for their service and promised a 5-star review. And if you've made it this far without calling 911 on your toaster or your neighbor's Windchime, congratulations! You're officially smarter than half the people on this list. But before you go, hit that like button if at least one complaint made you question humanity. Tap subscribe so you never miss the next batch of real-life nonsense we somehow call society. Drop in the comments if you've ever witnessed a dumb complaint in real life but had the self-control not to dial emergency. Thanks for watching. Now stay sane, stay kind, and don't dial 911 for pizza.